Now, ESPN and First Take, Rob Hanford. Now, the Queen Patricia Catherine Gavin states that the last request of Gerald Robert Ford was to learn Chinese and to salute her in view. Patrick Xavier Anderson isn't enough to make John Kevin be interested enough to see his child, or what you would name it. Now, where let's say we see parenting. Let's say Mike and Sarah can run in Whitmer's primary and have the majority favorite. Aaron and Alyssa can run for state rep. If I ran for county and Corey or his partner or the partner ran for city and Walnut Creek or state assembly, what party do you think we would run on? And say we're jonesing with the liberals. And if this was ever wondered, the myocarditis wouldn't be the issue with the AstraZeneca line if, let's say, the Breeze server was all on one person's server. Now, if this is ever wondered, wouldn't that mean having to admit parenting mistakes? Would this have to admit that by not signing the birth certificate, that one's dead, the other one came out, the other one's problem, and in view of the great-granddad, that the failure of the state where it says impeach him in 2011 and forward development, and where the 39 only says the name of the next couple of them, and ask that to Breeze compare to Nixon, and say, 你好，是说怪什么这个真的中什么招？说哎谁 Kevin 多真招，就变更真的。 Now, if this was wondered to Shin Qin, Mao Zedong's oldest daughter, Shin Wai-lin, her son, and then Wai-jin, same time he happens to spend all the time in Asia, he decides to propose the summer of, right around the time 01 hits, while still talking to Miss Rivas. Now, that wouldn't matter at all, would it? Mao Zedong's great-granddaughter? And now ask that when I take 3 steps into the warring nation, and I have to do something to insult him at the United Nations, and say a 4 million bomb to set off the 8.2 for subduction, with 100 million missing, 13 million confirmed dead, isn't a act of terrorism. Now, up until 3 weeks ago, the letters of indenturement still hasn't been seen. McConnell confirmed it. Joint Chairman confirmed it. Now, what happens if you could ask in Korean, Latin, Hindu, Arabic, Greek, I don't know, Mandarin, Russian, if the current vice president or the previous vice president still hadn't seen it in view of the current vice president and president. Not a national security concern like COVID-AIDS patients. Hey, how often does a prime minister get asked about COVID-AIDS and say it's liberal agenda? Oh wait, 45 does. Now, what happens if that's 28 human bubonic plague samples and 9 subspecies and say geno editing questions, and say subatomic metal wonderment from outer space, and say standard deviation in graphite imaging to robotics? Liberal agenda! Say, thanks, but we can't understand that. Why would the riot be so important then in the view of I want to be his librarian. You're not supposed to say taking a and having the come out. But that's like saying the 40-Year-Old Virgin movie. And then how that's wondered to a bad Republican parenting. The wife isn't the fifth cousin on the mom's side. Imagine having to admit that the same way as asking family problems. And say, Pat's second cousin, in violation of the Sky Treaty, wouldn't allow her to ask her prime minister questions. She can't communicate with Shin Quinn. What about Elizabeth? That's like, hey Dario, Anna would be your what? Oh, that's your second cousin. That view. And say Norway, Sweden, ECB. And say Myanmar. Compared to the Japanese marriage. And we can't understand that. Excuse me. Yoon, ni hao shu kwai shimu kwai gai shu kwai shinu go. Hi, shu chunra, shinru min chin chin. Ji kwai shi Title 16. Chum kun chin kun chu I shi. You say understand Pat. Be I shi kwai shu. You alcoholic? Jinga shu su no mi chin jao. Shi I shi shu no ke shi hoi shi no. Patricia, Jinga big baby W. Jinjao, Shishi. But not those type of conversations. Oh, I'm 45 and I decide not to make her Twitter tag while she's still living. And can't understand Saddam and say, Libya, Chinese bombing, let alone Belarus. ESPN. No. No baseball. Soccer just came in this year. What about football and lacrosse? And say, not a reason to travel. Broke Manfred. Broke San Leandro. And a reason why to ask him to take it away.